Welcome to the introductory video for macroeconomic principles at Rutgers-Camden for the third summer session of 2015. My name is Professor Guy Pascal, and the purpose of this is to just give you a brief introduction, obviously, to the course itself, give a little more detail about what's in the syllabus, and give a little bit more of an explanation for what's going to occur for the next 4 weeks. I'll just read off a few bits of information from the syllabus. Again, it's the third summer session, 2015. The ID for our course is 50-220-103J1, and the index number is 05135. I have office hours during the summer session. I'm in Armitage Hall, room 332, Friday from 3 to 6 p.m. Also, I can make special appointments for students who need to meet with me. All right, let me change a few things here. I have my screensaver coming up. So, desktops and screensavers, excuse this for me. Okay, it's a little bit better. Apologies for that. I had my screensaver set for every 1 minute. Not very helpful when you're making a video. Please note that you should email me prior to coming to office hours, just so I could be prepared, etc., for the office hours. So just don't show up for my office hours. You can call the economics department at 856-225-6136. I would highly recommend that you just email me. It's the best way to get a hold of me. My email is pascal@camden.rutgers.edu. As the syllabus states, the textbook is Principles of Macroeconomics by Case, Fair, and Oster from Pearson Publishing, the 11th edition. I highly recommend and I strongly stress to you that you should purchase the e-text for this book because we are using the companion of my Econ Lab with this, where most of the work for this course is going to take place. It is well integrated, the textbook with my Econ Lab. It's not that expensive if you get the e-text version with the access code. It's actually much less expensive than buying a brand new textbook for the course. The course itself, the way I try to explain it to students, is that I think of it in the same relationship between looking at the relationship between a doctor and a patient. So think of this as you're the doctor and the economy is the patient. So we want to understand things that the economists would look at to determine the health of the economy. So the purpose of this text itself is to understand the large view of the economy, recessions, depressions, growth in the economy, taking a look at output and income, inflation, the unemployment rate, etc. Those types of things, you get an understanding of when people talk about these national statistics, what they actually mean, how they're put together. We're also at the beginning of the course going to do a bit of understanding some basic total economic issues, taking a look at trade-offs that people make. Whenever you make a decision, there's going to evidently be a trade-off from that, or always will be. Supply, demand, and the basic functioning of markets. It's very important that you have a good idea of how markets operate, because we're going to be doing some market analysis later on in specific markets. So if you have a general idea of what goes on in a particular market, you understand. If you have a good idea what goes on in the overview, you can understand what goes on in these individual markets. We'll also take a look at some applications in the real world of how to use supply and demand analysis. We're going to look at aggregate expenditures and equilibrium output. So we're going to take a look at what an equilibrium looks like on individual levels, and then look at what it looks like on a national level. Also, we're going to make a distinction between fiscal and monetary policy, what they are, the differences between those two types of policies, what can be done with them, what are the differences, which ones work faster, what are the short-run impacts, and what are the long-run impacts of them. Also, we'll take a look at the Federal Reserve System, how the Federal Reserve regulates the money supply and how they can impact how the economy grows. We'll also take a look at money markets and how interest rates are determined in those marketplaces. Also, how output prices and interest rates are determined, so very important factors in determining how the economy works. We're also going to look at the policy effects and also cost shocks using aggregate demand and aggregate supply. So at the beginning of the course, we're going to be looking at just generic demand and supply, but we're going to look at aggregate demand and aggregate supply later on in the course to figure out when something drastic occurs in the economy, how is that going to affect the overall economy and the price level. And also, for example, if we have policies that go on. For example, if the federal government decides to cut taxes, how would that impact the economy in the short run, in the long term? We'll also take a look at how labor markets function on the national level. Additionally, we're going to take a look at financial crises and stabilization policies and how they can be used to address any type of financial crisis that comes around. Particularly important given what happened in 2007. It's important understanding that. And we're going to finish out with taking a look at different schools of economic thoughts, particularly the Keynesian and the classical school of thought. We're going to take a look at monetarism, understanding what the basic tenets of each of those schools of thought are and the differences between the two. One school of thought might think one particular item is important, while another school of thought would think that that is completely unimportant. Also, I want to apologize for my appearance. I'm recording this during the hottest day of the year, and it is in the one room in my house that is not air conditioned. So if I look a little frazzled, it's because of that. I was out working in the yard today, etc. So it was a rough day out there. So we already talked about the different schools of macroeconomic thought. We're going to take a look at a comparative advantage and how that impacts international trade. So we're going to take a look at why does international trade and how we can make some determination of what countries produce a particular item and why they sell them to other countries, and also the role of protectionism, i.e. tariffs, etc. Why are tariffs imposed to protect local industries? Make sure you realize that this is going to be a 4-week course, so I refer to this that we're going to have 4 different modules. All right, so each of the modules represents a specific week, and each of these modules ends with a test during the week. If you take a look at your syllabus appendix 1, it contains a complete breakdown of the weeks, what's due, when it's due, etc. Make sure, and the one thing I'm deviating from the syllabus on this particular point is, make sure that you start your work and do your work early on. The way I set up the availability and deadlines for this course for each week is that everything's open at the beginning of the week and everything is due at the end of the week. So make sure that you don't fall into the trap of putting off doing your work to the weekend, because realize that if you do that, you're in essence trying to do 3.5 to 4 weeks worth of work in 2 days. I highly recommend that you get all the homeworks and quizzes done before Friday, and then you spend your weekend taking the test, preparing for the test, etc. All right, I know some people will procrastinate, but I'm going to stress it right now that if you wait until the weekend to try to get all these things done for the course and get all your assignments and tests done, you're probably not going to get a very good grade. So just make sure you realize that, and I want to stress that point. Get your homeworks and quizzes and forms done by Friday, and then have the weekend available to take the test for that particular week. On the grading end, there's 18 homework assignments, 18 quizzes, 3 form assignments, and 4 tests. You can attempt the homeworks as many times as you want, and you can attempt the quizzes as many times as you want. All right, if you want to take a quiz 10 times, go right ahead. That's perfectly acceptable. Your highest grade will count towards your final grade for the course. So whatever the highest you get on the homeworks, that's going to be your grade for that. When I calculate the grade for the course, same thing for the quizzes. There's no time limit on the homeworks. You You can do them as many times as you want. The quizzes themselves have a 30-minute time limit, so be aware of that. I have it set up in my econ lab that the amount of time that you're in it and how much time is left is going to show up, so you're going to have an idea of how much time that you have left. So there are 30 minutes for the quizzes. There are 2 quizzes that are a little bit longer. I want you to be aware of that. They are quizzes for the chapters 4 and 6. If you look at the appendix of the syllabus, you'll see on there that they have an asterisk next to them. So that's to indicate that they are 45 minutes in duration. The test you can take 3 times. Again, the highest grade will count towards your grade for the course. And there's a 120-minute time limit on the tests themselves. So be aware of that. And again, when you're taking it, there's a clock that'll be in place that'll let you know how much time you spent on that particular test. Also for the test, I want to point out to students is that in your book, in my econ lab, there's a study plan that's associated with the textbook itself. And I want to tell people right now, make sure you take the time to work through the study plan. What I tell students to do, as I've told you previously, is work on the homeworks and quizzes during the week. Then you have the weekend available to take the tests. And what I usually recommend people is take the test early in the week, take it on Friday, during the weekend, take it on a Friday or a Saturday, get feedback on what you got. But after you finish the test, what happens is that information feeds back into the study plan. So the stuff that you got wrong gets stressed in the study plan. So if you take the test and get a 70, the 30% that you got incorrect will feed back into the study plan. And if you work your way through the study plan, you should improve upon the things that you didn't do well on the first test. So make sure you avail yourself of the study plan. I stress this to students and every time I teach the course, and some students don't take the advice. So make sure you avail yourself of that. It's a very powerful tool that picks up on what you got wrong, feeds it back into the study plan, and then you can work through the study plan to improve on what you got wrong on the test. And then when the second time you take the test, you should be able to improve upon the second time, if you want to do it a third time also. Now I realize some students, and I can see this on the reports I get from my econ lab, some students will take the test, finish it, 2 minutes later take the test and finish it, and 2 minutes later take the test and finish it, and hope to get a higher, whatever their highest grade is, just due to random chance. Okay? You can do that, that's perfectly fine, but you're really cheating yourself on the ability to learn additional things. So make sure you avail yourself of the study plan. Also, there are 3 forums during the semester. All right, these are located in Sakai. All the other assignments are in my econ lab. So homeworks, quizzes, and the tests are in my econ lab. The forum is located on Sakai. The purpose of these is to try and, number one, increase the level of interaction between me and the students themselves. Instead of just saying, here's a bunch of things to do. Do them, take the homeworks, do the quizzes. Here's your homework, here's your test, do that, and that's it. It's to improve the interaction between professor and student for online classes. Also, there's the ability for me to put real world issues that are out there that relate to what we're talking about or what you're answering and reading in my econ lab and the textbook. So make sure you do that. Also for the forums, make sure you post early in the week, because the way I grade things for the forum is that if you post something on the forum, I will either respond. So for example, if you didn't explain something very well or you got something wrong, I will ask an additional question and I will respond to you. Then you will get a grade. So let's say you did something you didn't really spend much time or effort thinking on it, and you messed it up completely. It's not something that relates to the course. All right. What I'll do is I'll read it, I'll respond to it, and I'll give you a grade. So let's say I gave you 5 points out of 10. Later on, you can respond to what I put up there, clarify your post, add additional post, and I will add to your grade. And if you're still not satisfied with your grade, you can read other people's posts and comment on their posts. You could start your own thread, your own discussion thread, So if you thought of something that I didn't have in the discussion thread, saying this is something that has occurred in my life that I'm aware of that relates to this, and you will get additional points. So make sure that you remember that, but you also post early in the week, because if you post something at 11 o'clock on Sunday night and it's due at 11:59, I might not actually look at the posts between the next 59 minutes that the posts are available, so you won't get any feedback to me. You won't know what your grade is, and you won't know what your grade is until the post is actually closed. So avail yourself of posting early in the week. That way you're going to get feedback from me on what your grade is, what issues I have with your post. I might ask a question that relates to that. And even after that point, if you would really like to have a higher score than you're getting, then you can read other people's posts, start your post, respond to people's posts, and improve your grade that way. If you wait until Sunday night to do that, that type of interactivity is not going to exist, and you might get a lower forum score than you wanted. All right. Just realize the grades are posted in Sakai during the week. So when you're posting your items, there's a grade book in Sakai. You can go and look and see what your grade is for a particular forum. Once the post closes on Sunday night at 11:59, the next day I transfer those grades into my econ lab. So everything's going to be in my econ lab. It's just there's a delay between the transfer of your forum grade in Sakai going into my econ lab. The weights for assignments, quizzes, tests, and forums are as follows. And I found that I did not include forums in the syllabus, so I will be loading a updated version of the syllabus so you're aware of that. So I'll be posting that tonight, so the final version, and I'll post a notice telling everybody that this is the final version unless more issues are found. Homeworks are 20%, quizzes are 20%, the tests are 55%, and the forums are 5%, and the grading scale is in your syllabus. It's a normal scale. A is 90 or above. B plus is 85 to less than 90, etc., etc., etc. Failing is below a 60. Also realize there's no extra credit for the course. I've never given extra credit. It's not something I intend on starting doing anytime in the future. Here's a very important section, the deadline section. Make sure you read the deadline section. I list out in excruciating detail my expectations. You're expected to meet your deadlines. I'm not difficult. If you ask for an extension, you have to ask for it by email, but you have to request an extension before the due date. For this course, everything is due every 4 weeks. It's at Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. If you email me Monday morning at 1 p.m. and request an extension, you're not going to get the free extension. So if you email me before the deadline, I'll give you a day, no penalty. You get another day to finish the work, and you will not be penalized. There's no deduction in your scores because of that. If you do not email me beforehand and you request an extension after the deadline, the penalties are quite severe. First off, for the first 24-hour periods, you lose 30%, and it's 10% for every 24-hour time period after that. And realize that when I calculate how late you are, it is based upon the due date and not the time and date that you requested it. So for example, if you email me on Monday at noon for an extension, you're late from Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. The clock doesn't restart with your asking for the extension. All right, so make sure you realize that all the late times and dates are based upon, and the lengths of time are based upon the original due date. And some students thought that they could email me 4 days after the deadline, and that meant that the clock started all over on them. That's not the case. So remember that. Make sure that if you don't think you can get something done, that you're proactive and you email me ahead of time and you get a day extension with no penalty. Realize that if you ask me for a day extension and you miss the deadline, the penalties and start at 40%. All right? So now instead of the first 24-hour period being 30%, that first 24-hour period that you're late is 40%, and another 10% for every 24-hour period after that. Once you get to 7 days late, assignments and tests become zeros. All right? 7 days late, and it's 6 days if you ask for the extension. I can make special accommodations for these rules, but you have to have medical documentation to back that up. So if you tell me I was sick and I couldn't do this, then you're going to have to give me medical documentation from a physician backing this up. Realize that I don't want the details of what's wrong with you. What medical condition you suffer from is none of my ability. It's confidential information between you and your doctor. However, make sure you realize that anything that you send to me is going to have the information about the physician, their contact information. It's going to have a beginning and end period, date and time, or dates that you were under the care of that doctor, and that whatever was wrong with you prevented you from completing work in this course. All right, so make sure specifically if you do have a medical condition, if you're sick, that you're under a doctor's care, because if you're not under a doctor's care, that's not a medical situation that you're going to get a special accommodation for. Email correspondence, just make sure when you're emailing me, you identify the course in the subject heading. It's not that important over the summer session because we only teach one course during the summer session. But you can realize that if you're teaching 3 courses and somebody says, I'm in your class, I'm having problems, I'd have to look up and see what class you're in. All right. Think of the email correspondence. And it says here, make it consistent with a professional correspondence. Do it in the same manner that you would email your boss. This is, I'm working on this project and this is the problems that I'm having. Professional correspondence. I'm finding that students they write more in text mode than they do in email mode. And sometimes I can't figure out what they're asking. Sometimes I can't even read what some students write. So when you write the email, take the time and the effort to write it out in a professional manner. I would greatly appreciate it. I know this might seem silly, but when you get in the labor force and you're working at a company, a lot of people, I do consulting work. I didn't really go too much detail about what I do, but besides teaching at Rutgers, I do consulting work. And one of the things that my clients talk about is people who have graduated recently, the emails that they send to their bosses or to whoever, when they read them of recent graduates, it's not very clear what they're talking about. So it's a good opportunity to brush up on your emailing etiquette and writing, so you'll have that skill when you go in the labor market. It'll just help to distinguish you from other people in the labor market. Disability statement also. This course is open to all students who meet the academic requirements of the course. If you need a special accommodation based on the impact of a disability, you should contact me privately and discuss it with me as soon as possible. And on the syllabus, there's a web link that you can go to about requesting special accommodations. Additionally, on the syllabus, there is a statement of collaboration. And let me just read this out to you. Given that Rutgers University is committed to academic integrity, students are required to acknowledge and cite ideas of others, identify all contributors to work submitted for classroom credit, and ensure that the work submitted is their own and does not contain impermissible collaboration. For further information on the Rutgers University academic policy, students should go to, and that's the academic. It's academicintegrity.rutgers.edu. It's on your syllabus. Just make sure that you're aware of that. And for the course itself, if you go to the appendix, it breaks out opening and closing dates for week 1, 2, 3, and 4. It goes over what homeworks and quizzes are due. So for week 1, it's going to be a getting started homework and quiz up to chapter 4 homework and quiz. There's a week 1 forum and a module number 1 test. So make sure that you're aware of that. And it does the same thing for week 2. We will be doing chapters 5 through 9. There's another form and another test at the end. Week 3, we will do chapters 10 through 14. There's a form for that week, and there is a test for that week. And the final week, we're doing chapters 15, 18, and 19, and there's a test associated with that. So the other things I just want to point out to you is, number one, make sure you read the syllabus all the way through. It outlines most of the policies, all the important policies for the course. There might be, some things that are not exactly clear, and we can work through those during the semester. But make sure you read through that. I'm just pointing this out because I was surprised by the number of students when I teach online classes where students would email me a question that's already answered in the syllabus. Imagine if you were working at an institution and your boss gave you, like, if you think of the syllabus as your boss just gave you a 4-week-long assignment to do, and you were emailing them constantly asking questions about what was already on your assignment list and was already explained to you. Your boss would come to the conclusion, or would start to think, why did I hire this person? So think of it in that perspective. The syllabus is basically outlines your workflow for the next 4 weeks, and this is what your direct supervisor has handed out to you. So before you ask questions, it's always a good idea to review that. I have in the past, I run my own company right now. I've worked at companies in the past, and there's nothing that your immediate supervisor will find more distasteful if they give you a detailed document on what they expect you to do for the next 4 weeks, and you don't even bother reading it, and you consistently ask questions about, what am I supposed to do for the 4 weeks? All right, so think of it that way, that if you have a question, make sure that you go to the syllabus first, and if it's not answered there, then email me about it. Also, with My Econ Lab, if you have any technical issues with My Econ Lab, your best bet is to contact Pearson directly. If you log into My Econ Lab, I actually post a number that you can call. People are telling me I tried to do something and it didn't work. I can't correct anything in My Econ Lab. It's not under my control. You have to do their customer service to handle those types of things. And what I'll do is I'll post something on Sakai, an announcement that'll be available. So if you do have an issue, contact Pearson directly. The one thing I do highly recommend that you do if you have a technical issue with My Econ Lab, that when you call customer service, or if you're emailing them, etc., that if you call customer service, what they will do is, I've had problems myself with My Econ Lab. I had an issue with something I actually messed up myself. It wasn't My Econ Lab. I didn't realize some of the functionality. I messed up something in one of the courses. But when you interact with the person and they get it straightened out, make sure that they send you an email and that you have me CC'd on the email. It's just a good practice of getting in and getting that documentation, because you could say, oh, I talked to the people at Pearson. Well, I have no documentation that you actually talked to the people at Pearson. It's a good thing. It's a good practice to get into, particularly when you go in the work world, that you keep your immediate supervisor in the loop, so they know, oh, I'm having a technical issue, and that and the email. So if they tell you, well, I didn't know anything, if your immediate supervisor goes, well, no, you didn't get this done, but what's going on here? And you say, well, I had technical issues with this particular product. And you can say, you were CC'd on the emails. All right? So it's a way that you can cover yourself, that if somebody's saying you didn't do something, this information, you're keeping that person in the loop of what is actually occurring. All right? So hopefully this has been helpful to you. The other thing is, let me just give you a brief synopsis of my career. I actually went to Rutgers-Camden and received a BA in economics. I went to Rutgers, New Brunswick, and received a master's degree in economics in '94. So I graduated in '91 from Rutgers-Camden and '94 from Rutgers, New Brunswick. I've been teaching at Rutgers-Camden since 1993, so 22 long years. Sorry, couldn't help but be a little, make a little fun there. So I've been doing this a long time. I worked at the Bureau of Economic Research, Healthcare and Disability section for a number of years while I was in graduate school and after graduate school. I worked at the virtual health system in South Jersey for a number of years. I also worked for Keystone Mercy Health Plan and for Health Partners. Most of the things I did in the hospitals and healthcare system was sort of applying economic analysis to healthcare related issues. I get sort of like as a health economist, looking at health related issues and bringing in a perspective of economics and how to deal with some of these issues. And I've been running my own business for 14 years now, doing consulting work that's pretty much basically the same type of work I was doing when I worked for hospitals and managed care systems. So just make sure you realize that a lot of this I come from the perspective of the business world in doing these things. For this course, healthcare and macroeconomics really doesn't gel together, but I try to bring in items that are occurring in the world in the course, particularly, and when I teach on site, I try to bring in a lot of examples of things that are currently going on. For the forums, I try to populate the forums with concepts and with occurrences in the economy itself. But make sure you realize that somebody who is self-employed and runs their own company, I have a completely different mindset than other professors, particularly when it comes to due dates. I don't want to say very strict, but I'm strict about it. Usually if I say something and I say, this is what I expect, that's what I expect. If I go to a restaurant and I say, I want my pizza this way, and they give it to me some other way, that's not acceptable. And I just want you to understand the reason why I look at these things this way is because I actually, work for companies. I've worked in companies, etc. So I know how the labor market and job market works out there. And I can tell you that when I talk to some of my clients, the one thing that they talk about with recent graduates is their biggest complaint is the fact that recent college graduates think that deadlines are meaningless. And for me, for somebody who runs a business, if I miss deadlines, my contracts get canceled. I don't get paid. If I have people working for me, they get laid off. So there are very real consequences for me missing deadlines. So that's why some people say I'm difficult when it comes to deadlines. I'm not difficult. I don't think it is difficult. If I tell you exactly what I expect from you, that's what I expect to get in return. All right. So I have told you that a lot of companies think that people think deadlines are fudgeable nowadays, and they believe it's a real shortcoming of students in the labor market. So one of the things I hope to instill in students here is to balance your time, get things done. If you're going to be late, email ahead of time. You can get an extension. If you had something due at work and you were 3 days late and said, oh, by the way, boss, I didn't get that stuff done I was supposed to get done, your boss would not be very pleased with that. So hopefully you can get into the pattern of managing your time and doing your work on time and being proactive with the assignments that you have. And when you graduate, if you have that skill set, that's something that's going to distinguish you from other recent college graduates. It's a big distinction, and if it's something that you can start to develop now while you're in college, it's a skill set that's going to be incredibly valuable to you in the labor market. So hopefully that was helpful for you. Make sure that you avail yourselves also, and I didn't really touch upon this, is the videos I have posted on Sakai. I have a number of videos that relate to the subject matter, in particular the graphical analysis. Make sure you avail yourself of that. If you have a concept that you're having issues with and it's graphically based, go to those videos. The students I have, even in on-site classes, find them incredibly helpful. The reason being that they find it incredibly helpful is in that textbook, you might see a graph that has 4 different lines in it and shows that it's shifted this way and one shifted that way, etc., etc. But you never see what it looks like at the beginning. You just see the very end, and then there's text describing all the steps that got them there. With the videos, if you take a look at the videos, you will see that graph get built up step by step all the way through. So some students have difficulty with those static graphs and understanding what's going on. That's the reason why I put those videos together to sort of make it easier to understand every step of the process that went through in that analysis. If there's a particular graphical analysis that I didn't cover, some of these, for example, the supply and demand ones cover a wide range of materials. So you might not see a specific graph, but it'll cover a wide variety of that type of analysis. If you have any issues with any other graph, let me know, and I will do my best to produce a video and post it for everybody in the class. Now realize that if you're the only person that's having an issue and you ask for a graph Sunday night, you're not going to get a brand new video being produced that night. I will do my best to produce the videos in a timely fashion that anybody requests. Some of them I might not be able to do just from technical limitations on the software, etc., that I actually have. I might not be able to do something that looks decent and it also has the quality to actually explain that. So you might ask for a graph and I might tell you I won't be able to put that video together for you. But just realize that if there's a specific concept, graphical concept that you think it would be helpful to have a video for, I will do my best to put it together. Realize it might not be, especially in this compressed time frame for the summer session, that it might not be very timely, that you might get it before or after the fact. So just realize that if you're having an issue, if you make a request like that, the earlier in the week that you make that request, the better off it'll be. So hopefully everything will go well this semester. Again, remember to email me if you're going to go to my office hours. If I don't have any requests for students to my office hours, I might just actually cancel them instead of going in. Last semester over the summer, I had 9 hours worth of office hours and nobody showed up. So I will have those office hours posted. And if you want to go to my office hours, make sure you email me and I will show up for the office hours. So hopefully this has been helpful. I would say that hopefully you'll have some fun over the next 4 weeks. I don't know many people who think of economics as fun. I do a little bit. But just make sure you keep up on your work. If you have any issues, make sure you contact me and I'll do the best I can to help you.